Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sen Taur Scrolls, Lore, Fire, and Forbidden Texts. I'm Reverend Mother, and I'll be your hostess. Reverend Mother Mary Catherine, that is. All right, so let's get started. We're reading Aradia, or the Gospel of the Witches by C.G. Leland. And this was originally published in 1899. It is public domain work. We are in chapter 13, Diana and the Children. And there, with all Diana can appear, with bow in hand, right as a huntress see. And Shade, daughter, stint thy heaven ease. And forth she went and made a vanishing. Chaucer, C.T., The Knight's Tale. There was in Florence, in the oldest time, a noble family, but grown so poor that their giorni de festa, or feast days, were few and far between. However, they dwelt in their old palace, which was in the street now called La Via Cittadella, which was a fine old building, and so they kept up a brave show before the world, when many a day they hardly had anything to eat. Round this place was a large garden, in which stood an ancient marble statue of Diana, like a beautiful woman who seemed to be running with a dog by her side. She held in her hand a bow, and on her forehead was a small moon. And it was said that by night, when all was still, the statue became like life and fled and did not return till the moon set or the sun rose. The father of the family had two children who were good and intelligent. One day they came home with many flowers which had been given to them, and the little girl said to her brother, "The beautiful lady with the bow ought to have some of these." Saying this, they laid the flowers before the statue and made a wreath, which the boy placed on her head. Just then the great poet and magician Virgil, who knew everything about the gods and fairies, entered the garden and said, smiling, "You have made the offering of flowers to the goddess quite correctly, as they did of old. All that remains is to pronounce the prayer properly, and it is this." So he repeated the invocation to Diana. To Diana, "Lovely goddess of the bow, lovely goddess of the arrows, of all hounds and of all hunting, thou who wakest in starry heaven, when the sun is sunk in slumber, thou with moon upon thy forehead, who the chase by night preferrest, unto hunting in the daylight, with thy nymphs unto the music of the horn, thyself the huntress. And most powerful, I pray thee, think although but for an instant upon us who pray unto thee." Then Virgil taught them also the scan gurizon, or spell to be uttered when good fortune or aught is especially required. The conjuration of Diana, fair goddess of the rainbow, of the stars and of the moon, the queen most powerful of hunters and the night. We beg of thee thy aid, that thou mayest give to us the best of fortune ever. Then he added the conclusion, "If thou heedst our evocation, and wilt give good fortune to us, then in proof give us a token." And having taught them this, Virgil departed. Then the children ran to tell their parents all that had happened, and the latter impressed it upon them to keep it a secret, nor breathe a word or a hint thereof to anyone. But what was their amusement when they found early the next morning, before the statue, a deer freshly killed, which gave them good dinners for many a day. Nor did they want thereafter at any time game of all kinds, when the prayer had been devoutly pronounced. There was a neighbor of this family, a priest, who held in hate all the ways and worship of the gods and old time, and whatever did not belong to this religion, and he, passing the garden one day, beheld the statue of Diana crowned with roses and other flowers, and being in a rage, and seeing in the street a decayed cabbage, he rolled it in the mud and threw it dripping at the face of the goddess, saying, Behold, thou vile beast of idolatry, this is the worship which thou hast from me, and the devil do the rest for thee. Then the priest heard a voice in the gloom where the leaves were dense, and it said, It is well, I give thee warning, since thou hast made thy offering, Sonic of the game to thee I'll bring, thou have thy share in the morning. All that night the priest suffered from horrible dreams and dread, and when at last, just before 3 o'clock, he fell asleep, he suddenly awoke from a nightmare in which it seemed as if something heavy rested on his chest, and something indeed fell from him and rolled on the floor. And when he rose and picked it up and looked at it by the light of the moon, he saw it was a human head half decayed. Another priest, who had heard his cry of terror, entered his room, and having looked at the head, said, I know that face. It is as if the old man whom I confessed and who was beheaded 3 months ago at Siena. And 3 days after the priest who had insulted the goddess died. The foregoing tale was not given to me as belonging to the gospel of the witches, but as one of a very large series of traditions relating to Virgil as a magician, but it had its proper place in this book because it contains the invocation to and incantation of Diana, these being remarkably beautiful and original. When we remember how these hymns have been handed down or preserved by old women, and doubtless much garbled, changed, and deformed by transmission, it cannot but seem wonderful that so much classic beauty still remains in them, as, for instance, in Lovely Goddess of the Bow, Lovely Goddess of the Arrow, Thou who walkst in starry heaven. Robert Browning was a great poet, but if we compare all the Italian witch poems of and to Diana with the former's much admired speech of Diana, Artemis, it will certainly be admitted by impartial critics that the spells are fully equal to the following by the bard. I am a goddess of the ambrosial courts, and save by here, queen of pride surpassed, by none whose temples whiten this world. Through heaven I roll my lucid morning moon along, I shed in hell o'er my pate people peace. On earth I, caring for the creatures, guard each pregnant yellow wolf and fox bitch sleek, and every feathered mother's callow brood, and all the love, green haunts, and loneliness. This is pretty, but it is only imitation, and neither in the form of spirit really equal to the incantations, which are sincere in faith, and it may here be observed in sorrow, yet in very truth that a very great number of modern poetical handlings of classic mythic subjects the writers have, despite all their genius as artists, produced Rococo work which will appear to be set to another generation simply from their having missed the point or admitted from ignorance something vital which the folklorist would probably not have lost. Achilles may be admirably drawn, as I have seen him in a Louis XIV wig with a Turkish scimitar, but still one could wish that the designer had been a little more familiar with Greek garments and weapons. So there are a few footnotes here to this part. And one, the most important part of witchcraft is to intone or accent the incantations accurately in a manner like that of church chanting or Arab resuscitations. Hence, the apparently prose form of most spells. It is to be observed that the invocation, oh, I'm sorry, this is number two. It is to be observed that the invocation is strictly a psalm of praise or a hymn. The Skrangerzone is a request or a prayer, though it often takes the form of a threat or menace. This only exists in classic witchcraft. 3. Something is here omitted which can, however, be supplied from many other similar incantations. It was probably as follows: If thou art favorable and will grant my prayer, then may I hear the bark of a dog, the neigh of a horse, the croaking of a frog, the chirp of a bird, the song of a cricket, etc. 3 or 4 of these sounds were generally selected and vary more or less, but seldom materially from these. Sometimes visible manifestations, as for instance lightning, are requested. To see a white horse is a sign that the prayer will be granted after some delay. It also signifies victory. And 4. La testa de uno, oof, humo piana de verme e puzzolante. Okay. A parody in kind for the decayed cabbage, much completer than the end of the German tale resembling it. And chapter 14 is super short, so we'll just go right on into 14. Chapter 14, The Goblin Messengers of Diana and Mercury. The following tale was not given to me as connected with the Gospel of the Witches, but as Diana appears in it, and it is, and as the whole conception is that of Diana and Apollo in another form, I include it in this series. Many centuries ago, there was Phileto, goblin or spirit, or devil angel Chalsa, who knows what, and Mercurio, who was the god of speed and of quickness, being much pleased with this imp, bestowed upon him the gift of running like the wind, with the privilege that whatever he pursued, be it spirit, a human being, or animal, he should certainly overtake or catch it. This Forletto had a beautiful sister who was like him, ran errands, not for the gods, but for the goddess. There was a female god for every male, even down to the small spirits. And Diana, on the same day, gave to this fairy the power that whoever might chase her, she should, if pursued, never be overtaken. One day, the brother saw his sister speeding like a flash of lightning across the heaven, and he felt a sudden strange desire and rivalry to overtake her. So he dashed after as she flitted on. But though it was his destiny to catch, she had been fated never to be caught. And so the will of one supreme God was balanced by that of another. So the two kept flying around and round the edge of heaven, and at first all the gods roared with laughter. But then they understood the case, they grew serious and asked one another how it was to end. Then the great Father God said, "Behold, the earth, which is in darkness and gloom, I will change the sister into a moon, and her brother into the sun, and so shall she ever escape him, yet he will ever catch her with his light, which shall fall on her from afar. For the rays of the sun are his hands, which reach forth with burning grasp, yet which are ever eluded." And thus it is said that the race begins anew with the first of every month, when the moon, being cold, is covered with as many coats as an onion. But while the race is being run, as the moon becomes warm, she casts off one garment after another till she is naked, and then stops. And then, when dressed, the race begins again. As the vast storm cloud falls in glittering drops, even so the great myths of the olden time are broken up into small fairy tales. And as these drops in turn reunite, oh revelry you sur el estang, on silent lake or streamlet lone, as Leland hath it. Even so, minor myths are again formed from the fallen waters. In this story, we clearly have the dog made by Vulcan and the wolf. Jupiter settled the question by petrifying them, as you may read in the Julius Polu, his fifth book, or any other on mythology. Is Canis a fruit posa a Jove Lapidum conversus, which hunting hound, as well is known, was changed by Jupiter to stone. It is remarkable that in this story the moon is compared to an onion. The onion, says French something, symbiote der Natter, was on account of its many skins among the Egyptians the emblem and her hieroglyph of the many-formed moon, whose different phases are so clearly seen in the root when it is cut through. Also because its growth or decrease corresponds with that of the planet. Therefore it was dedicated to Isis, the moon goddess, and for this reason the onion was so holy as to be regarded as having in itself something of deity, for which reason Juvenal remarks that the Egyptians were happy people to have gods growing in their gardens. And we'll call it there. Yes. And pick up in chapter 15 next week. Shout out to the Order of Sen Taur, who has now opened the store.centaur.com. And we're going to make a public announcement sometime this coming week and have a grand opening for that. And it's mostly books. Right now, I think it's all books pretty much. But we do have new and used books available. So with that, have a beautiful rest of your Sunday, and blessed be.